Good evening. This is Kara with the Ministry of Uncover No More. I'm having to stay off my feet and get well. So I've arranged my ministry life with blog work and everything in such a way, upstairs and downstairs, to where I can quit traveling so much up and down the stairs, actually, and sit in the places that we've invested in to help my scoliosis and whatnot that has caused issues. But I'm also someone who I had COVID. I contracted COVID, and so did one of my daughters in December of 2019. I had just been disinherited. My family was struggling greatly, and I had spontaneously found the disinheritance, had to take care of my mother the last year, and my family went through a very difficult and dark season. And we're coming out our own separate ways, and I'm very thankful for that. That being said, I am dealing with many things that many people are dealing with. I have my particular story, and my family has dealt with the tragedy. However, I want to read a portion of this book that I am doing a book review on, and I'm about to do some artwork for a particular chapter. Saving Justice by Truth, Transparency, and Trust by James Comey. First off, I want to say transparency is a word that most people in my life hate. I can't be anything but transparent. I've had people my entire life, literally, don't tell Kara. Don't tell your mother. Don't tell. And that was my dad would say, don't tell your mother this kind of thing to my children. And it was just, but this was even before that. And it was considered a protection mode. When you are an adult who is as transparent as I am, what ends up happening is people start lying, because I'm a spiritualist that nobody likes. Nobody likes my spirituality. It has been very hard for them to come to grips with it. And that's not my problem. But I am dealing with consequences because people put problems on me. So I'm just saying transparency is a word that is not understood at all, period, in the current society. And those of us that are that way are beautiful, honest, loving, and persecuted. Many times we are persecuted, particularly if we're highly gifted and called, and we know we have things to accomplish in this lifetime, and I am one of those people. So all of that explains a rather strange YouTube. The reason this is strange is because it's this YouTube and a Rune that I just drew is going on two different websites. My book review website and another new website that I have, because I'm drawing runes and I know the magnificent power in runes. So I need to show the world the magnificent power of runes in communication in the spiritual world, because you can see my runes. And that is something I had explained earlier in a YouTube, that human beings are spirit, soul is one side, but you cannot see, and body. You cannot see your emotions until the tears are coming. You cannot see the emotions until somebody uses sarcasm because they can't cry. And I've got several people in my family like that. They will joke and they will joke and they will joke, but they cannot cry. And then they thought something was wrong with me, that I can easily cry, when it is actually the exact opposite. They're the ones that are bound. If you cannot cry, you probably need to go on a journey with a therapist. You have a problem. Crying should come to you. You should be able to just sit down and cry it out. And if male, female, I don't care what age, and if you cannot do that and release emotion, something has happened or something is continuing to happen. And indeed, don't get discouraged. This society is indeed that complicated, and that's why I keep doing YouTubes. Now, I am dealing with a chapter, and I'm having to go slow in this book because James Comey is sharing what, from the past perspective of how he was fired by a criminal who was in the White House. Okay, so this is a situation where a little girl was abducted. And then I have already read this for the book review, but I'm going to read it again, but I'm going to go into the room that I just drew. 2 hours later, Richardson walked quickly into my office. They found her, he said, laying an 8 by 10 color photograph in front of me, and she's alive. And I'll move on. I started crying. See, that's James Comey just right there in his office, because he had to look at a blow-up picture of this girl chained to a tree with bug bites all over her. I couldn't look away from the picture. I held my hand up, palm to Richardson, to thank him and ask him to leave, all without words. That's a normal reaction in this day and age. And so I'm asking the question as I do the artwork with that James Comey is admitting. If you can't react like that, why? Why? Proper emotion is just that. It's respectful of truly horrific situations. I just painted horror up above my chalkboard there. And I don't know why I use those colors, and I noticed tonight as I was about to draw a rune with the questions in my mind, knowing that I'm about to do artwork for this chapter, which is, I've read ahead, but I'm on chapter 1 of artwork. And I'm not going to do artwork for every chapter, but I'm on like chapter 6. And there's some other pieces that I'll do. But anyway, so I was going to draw my runes. And a lot of times when you're drawing runes, my runes are in this bag. I bought it at Whole Foods. It's spreads, 3 spreads, things like that. And those spreads can be a lot of work. Tonight, I kept hearing, okay, I need to understand about our partnership as people who love. How do we continue to work with horror that we're just being accosted with through the media, and in many ways, we're the families dealing with horror. The parents of that child and her sibling and herself, they are changed meaningfully for the rest of their lives. And how many thousands of times is that happening in a year in the United States of America, those kind of crimes? I don't know, but it's hard to grasp, and we have to keep our focus on our beauty here and the now, but at the same time process this meaningfully as people living in large cities in the United States of America. And so the word partnership, how do I continue to touch my people, the people who are doing the same thing I'm doing, which is trying to walk in love and in faith and in hope, and it's discouraging at times. Matter of fact, I was privileged with a long conversation with someone else who has a cat in this neighborhood. He was actually walking his cat, and we had a universal conversation, he and I, one evening outside my home. He's just around the corner. We couldn't stop talking to each other because we're universalists, and we were agreeing one after another, and I rarely get to do that. There's just been so much arguing and fussing and fighting. Everybody just seems to need to be dramatically negative right now. And we could just keep talking about universalism. That's what I'm talking about. How do we break over in our partnerships to where we are building the new while still handling the terror and the tragedy of the old? And that's a hard question. So here was my question to the runes tonight, and I kept thinking partnership. How am I going to meaningfully connect with these partnerships that I know are out there of beauty? Okay, with widespread disillusion, anxiety, boredom, and mild fear seems to produce helpless and degrading feelings. because it does seem that way to me with everybody I'm in contact with. And a second thing that I had a question about is tragedy strikes us, and I just read you that, and overwhelms emotional balance. Many people I know, we are very conscientious and very disciplined with our quiet times, with our meditation, with our worship. If we are spiritualists, we're careful in our environments. We are careful to be clean in our homes. We're friendly to everyone around us. We're helpful. We are a loving community, and yet we are losing emotional balance at times because of the tragedies happening, and we feel powerless, don't we? So indeed, I was going to pick two because of partnership, two, and I just said no, and I mixed up the runes, and I pulled GEBO, two, partnership. It's a gift. So what I'm going to do to close this and put it in two different blog articles is read to you from the Book of Runes by Ralph H. Bloom. You can tell mine is a well-worn, used book. I'm glad it is a hefty, good book because I'm going to be using it for a long time. So I'm going to read to us Partnership, a Gift, the GEBO rune. Drawing this rune is an indication that partnership in some form is at hand in love relationships, in business matters, in partnering of every kind. You are put on notice not to collapse yourself into that union. For true partnership is achieved only by separate and whole beings who retain their separateness even as they unite. Remember to let the winds of heaven dance between you. At the same time, there is another aspect of partnership that you are being called to consider. For the path of partnership can lead you to the realization of a still greater union with the higher self, union with the divine. The ultimate gift of this rune is the realization of the divine in all things. God always enters into equal partnerships, God being neither male nor female, unseen, where your emotions are, where you should be able to cry sometimes. Do not beat yourself up if you can't. It's not about you being a bad person. It's about this society. I'm trying to reach you and hug you here. Okay? I want you to be able to cry. There is a release in crying that is beautiful. I cannot tell you how many people have told me they cannot cry. And I start weeping inside for them. Weep for those who weep. Because I can tell you right now that a lot of times they will use negative humor. They become very critical because they can't cry and they can't find a release. And that is just tragic to me on a small basis. So I spend my time trying to comfort them. And then consequently, I have to back away and nurture myself because they're hard to comfort. These people are hard to comfort. And it's because they're having a hard time dealing with our society, in my personal opinion. GEBO, the rune of partnership, has no reverse, for it signifies the gift of freedom from which flow all other gifts. Some of the runes have reverses, and what I do with those is I don't allow reverse if I am not wanting to see how, this is my book. I will sometimes use reverse in mine. This book is actually in partnership with someone very, very, very great. I am not at liberty to say more. I would never use a reverse here. This is invocation for societal answers that I'm dealing with. And so I would never use a reverse. And if I am having a struggle with discouragement, I don't use reverse for myself. And I will sometimes use my tarot that are gardening cards. Always very uplifting. This one is for another very powerful individual. And a partnership from a distance. If I was throwing, in this particular book, if I was throwing because we are invoking for humanity, it would be a third-party draw, and I would consider using reverse. I haven't delved into this book as much. This book, I will never use reverse. This book is a union that is very special to me. I am a sorceress, so again, you're looking at a large concept with this book. This is not a private, this is a public book. And there's a difference in rune draw for that. So I'm learning and mentoring and learning and teaching because runestones come natural to me because of my spirituality. So I look up to people like James Comey. I do not look up to people like Donald Trump. James Comey is a savior to me in the United States of America. Bernice King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, is a savior to me in the United States of America. They are Jesus Christ, the King and Queen. People like that. Because I am one with them in purpose, and we are working together, and I know that in my core. Now let me ask you, I don't care if you're flipping hamburgers or a doctor or a caregiver like I have been all my life and betrayed, but still my heart is as a caregiver because I am who I am. Can you hear me? I want to reach out to people in the IT world. I just watched Netflix, The Social Dilemma. One of my daughters recommended it. And oh my God, I was devastated all day. I'm mourning for us all. And even thanked her as I did a blog article, and I've got to finish the artwork for it tomorrow. That's downstairs. That's some of my downstairs ministry work. I watched it on the screen downstairs. And I'm putting restrictions, you can call them restrictions, or boundaries on my device use. I've been doing that for quite some time. I watch my screen time, feel bad about it. I've been hooked on Mommy's Board back in the day in the 90s. I've been ghosted, Twitter, ghosted, texting. My Twitter experience is harrowing, very harrowing. But it's cleared out now. It took about 5 to 6 years for that to happen. So I have 3 small accounts. My accounts will always be small, and I'm happy with that. They have a purpose involving my blogs, and that makes me happy. So I am being very careful with Twitter. I got off Facebook. And The Social Dilemma helped me understand, no wonder I really was. I stayed on because I got a hold of some of my dear family, Beaty, that I haven't known about. Enjoyed that for a season, almost pulled off once, came back for a while, now I'm pulled off for good, but I didn't hit delete. I left the account there. And I've had several accounts. I've been attacked on my accounts. Instagram scares me. I'm glad where I am, and I probably won't change. I will keep it very, very low key now. So I can barely watch television, but I am learning to watch it in spaces of time. I have never been able to watch television. I thought it was just because my parents were strict Pentecostals, and that is not the case. I literally cannot watch TV very much. It just bothers me. The whole thing bothers me. I don't know why, and it's okay. I'm one of those. I probably am happier living more like 1980s, 1970s. And so I can. That's my choice. And that's what I'm doing a little at a time. And I'm also embracing those who are not doing that in my family. We've got to learn to be who we are and still enjoy one another. So that's where I am. I hope this encourages someone. If you would pick up the runes, I would encourage that. You might start crying. You might start feeling again. You might be able to focus better on the unseen world and the seen world and just enjoy yourself.